Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Tech Your Business podcast, where we show you different ways to use technology to stay ahead of the competition. Today, we're talking about an interesting topic, and every business these days has a website. And one thing that's important, that is necessary for every website to function, is traffic. The issue is that a lot of websites are online, but they don't have traffic. That means they don't have anyone looking to buy what they have to sell or even curious on what's on the website. And that's what we'll talk about today: website traffic, how to get more traffic on your website, and different things around that. And to speak about that with us today is Barb David. So welcome to the show, Barb.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. So now, what is the main reason you say that why most websites struggle to get visitors to them?
Most of the time, I think it's that people aren't quite understanding who they actually serve. I think they do and the only reason I say this is because this happened to me. So it's not like, I think as we start our businesses, we think, okay, here's who I want to serve. And then we kind of think, okay, I want to serve everybody. And then we get into it a little bit further down the line. And then we figure out who we're really talking to, like getting into specifics, like what like they're experiencing through their day when they happen to have a problem. Like for me, for example, I was thinking I wanted to serve basically everybody in the world. However, that's just not possible, right?
Yeah.
I think that like I don't really work more so with newer businesses because they're still trying to get an understanding of where they want to be. And I think I come in more when people have already had their website up for a while and they're struggling to try and figure out like how to track things, why isn't there anything coming to their website? And so I learned then that like I go into being more specific about how and who I'm serving. And it just makes a real difference, especially with your copy and your messaging and being able to connect with people.
Amazing. So knowing who you serve is one of the biggest, probably biggest reason why a lot of people don't get traffic. So what would you suggest is a way for business owners to quickly, because I've seen that happen a lot of times. A lot of times you start your business, I talk about it, especially with business plans, where you write a business plan and you start the business and then you see that it's not where you are. It's not heading in the direction you wanted it to go. So, what's the best way you would say for a business owner, or maybe let's say a faster way to know who they should be targeting, who they should be serving, who their business should be focusing on?
I always start with focus on you. So I have the saying, I ditch the niche. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one or if somebody else has heard of that, but I always say
Mhm.
ditch the niche and just work for you. So if you don't know where to start, I highly recommend just writing to yourself or serving yourself in terms of like what you want to accomplish. Because a lot of the times when we start our businesses, it's for a service that we didn't have ourselves or something that we're really passionate about. So we really know how it works. Like, for example, when I started my business with digital marketing, I was actually in the field for quite some time, like over 25 years, but it was more in the corporate side of things. And then I went to do part-time professional photography, fitness photography specifically. And I
Hmm.
went looking to find information around just that. And it got so complicated because it was just like a rabbit hole of stuff. And I thought, oh, okay, well, then I'm going to just figure it out for this particular industry. And it was something that I needed to know. So I was able to share it with others who were having the same problem. And then I think every business is going to be a little bit different, right? Everybody's unique with their service or their product. So I think then once you get past that point, if you're still not quite sure, like sit down and think, okay, well, what does my service do? Like who does it help? And go from that perspective and start asking those questions.
Okay. So now I think apart from that too, I think one of the thing I would like to talk about is for most businesses, the way they get, what are different ways here that they can get traffic to the website. So there they say there's the free ways, there are the paid ways. So what are the different options open to a typical business owner?
Yeah, the freeways obviously everybody's looking for, right? The freeways, and it's getting a little bit more complicated now with drawing a blank, AI with artificial intelligence like Perplexity and ChatGPT and all of that stuff. But essentially, what it boils down to is creating content that your audience wants to learn about. So answering the questions that people have. And once you have that content, then you push it out. Now, whether that content lives as a blog post or a video on YouTube or videos or posts on social, that's up to each individual business to decide like what channels it wants to go to. But essentially, it's creating stuff that's going to get in front of people to help them get to know, like, and trust you so that they know that you have a service that they can help, that you can help them with. With the paid ones, it's sort of, I mean, obviously it's great if you can get a return on it, but I feel like the paid one is a little bit faster than organic. Organic takes a little bit of time. And it varies again from business to business. Some of them take off like really fast. And depending on the industry that you're in, like not a lot of people want to know about SEO and content marketing as much as they do with how to do better fitness, like how to improve themselves fitness wise. And
Yeah.
so it takes a little bit longer, for example, for my industry to get out there versus maybe a fitness industry. But the paid is sort of, I think of that as it's just another medium or another method. So really you try to think about, okay, who's in front of you, who your service is for, figure out where they are. Are they mostly on Google search? Are they mostly, when they type in things that you sell, does it seem like it's a likely thing that they would come up on Google? And should you be in the paid search ads? So if the thing that they're typing is more transactional based and they want it like right now, whatever that thing is, maybe Google Ads is a good way to go because they're looking for that specific solution like right now. If they're asking about more informational stuff, maybe that goes towards Google Organic, where you create a blog post and then you get in front of people that way.
Okay, so now you talked about two things where if we search for the things and you can have Google Ads use the paid method, which you say gets the results faster, or you can do the organic method, which is creating blog posts and co. And I think a lot of people have had different experiences with both of them. Like for instance, I know I've actually built a business actually just doing posts. That was a long time ago. Just doing different posts, targeting different keywords. That's almost 10 years ago, if I remember. So for a business who wants to go through the organic routes, especially with everything changing these days, what would you say are the right things that they should do so that they would succeed at building their traffic organically?
I think these days it is becoming a little bit different. I used to say just create blog posts and keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that. But
Yeah.
I think now we have to take a little bit more care with it in terms of trying to be different than our competitors, but also show up so that we don't look like AI articles. So one of the kickers to this is it's not bad to do things with AI in a general sense or have blog posts created by them. But if your content doesn't really set yourself apart or bring any value to the reader, then it will not get ranked in Google. So it might not show up in Google. It won't show up in some of the AI tools like Perplexity. It has to have something of value and be different in order to show up in those areas. And some of that is putting information in there that other people would want to link to it. So maybe they'll give you what's called a backlink. So if, let's say, you wrote a list of something and you put some information in there that was so good, somebody from New York Times would want to link to it for their article. And that is something that can help you rank higher. Putting in quotes from people, that's also another way to set yourself apart from, say, artificial intelligence articles, or even people who don't really spend the time on it. Like if you take that extra time and care to put like these extra pieces into the blog content, it becomes a little bit more unique. It becomes a little bit more valuable. Quotes is one way to do that. So if you have somebody in your industry that you can quote, or even your client, or maybe it's another article perhaps, so you're giving them a backlink. And then also images is another one. So AI still has a lot of a long way to go before they start looking anywhere decent, I think, for most small businesses.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can put your own images, of course. So like if you get branding photography, that's going to be really specific to you and to what you sell. The other thing that I've been I haven't been able to prove it yet, but one thing that I was thinking about was phone images. So maybe you take branding photos from your phone and upload those, because in the back end of photos, there's like metadata.
Mm.
And the difference between metadata in AI generated photos and camera photos and phone photos, they're all different. And so that might be something of an indicator when the tools start scanning your website saying, oh,
Yeah.
this doesn't have any AI images. This might be a really personal blog. So those are some of the things.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on that because it's almost like with AI now, everybody it's almost like you have a factory just generating, spitting out so many articles, and we've seen so many of these AI articles that you can just read the first, second line. I know this AI, this you don't even need a detector these
Yeah.
days to know it's an AI
Right, right.
article. Yeah, so I think because we've actually done an experiment where we had a blog put up a lot of articles with AI. But the first thing, like you said, the quality of the articles is suspect. The facts in the articles, because a lot of times you have people just generate and post, and yeah, AI can tell you whatever it likes it wants to tell you, and if you don't check, you're going to be putting a lot of false these things. So I think it makes a lot of people lose trust in the articles. So those things you talked about, creating maybe lists and things people want to link to, and also quotes from real people. That's something that will really help to, like you said, help anyone doing organic traffic, looking for organic traffic, stand out. So now the second thing I'll talk about is you mentioned that paid traffic helps you get results faster, and that's something which a lot of people agree with. But there's also people who have spent money on paid ads and they didn't get any results. They spent a lot of money and nothing came out of it. So what's like I said with the like we did with the organic, what are some tips you'd have or give for anyone trying to get paid traffic to actually succeed at it, not just throw money and not get any returns from the spend?
Well, some things you can probably look at are the actual performance of the ads. So if we're talking about Google ads or even Facebook ads or Instagram ads, which are probably the most common, maybe Pinterest ads, the idea of the performance behind those ads. So if they're getting a lot of impressions, but they're not getting a lot of click-throughs, then maybe take a look at the messaging inside of the ad. Or it is maybe it's the image that's not grabbing attention. So I think that's
Mm,
like one aspect to look at it, is like before it comes to your website, is it performing over on that side? And not only that, is it targeting the right people? So that messaging is a really big deal, because if it says something that's not really resonating with the person who's looking at it, then that's probably why they're not clicking through. And I think the numbers vary so much too, as well, but like each platform is going to probably have some sort of general guideline for a click-through rate. Like you can probably find something to at least start from. Like Google Ads, I know, like if you can get, I think it was like the last time I looked, it was at 2% or something, or 8%.
mm.
If you get into double digits of Google Ads, that's super, super good. But if
Oh,
you are in like 0.018 or zero point 0.1 or something like that, that's maybe not so good. And that's where you're going to want to take a look at things. But there's so many different factors that you also want to take a look at. Like, for example, Google Ads, there's so many variables like your mobile speed. I have a client with one of those right now where the mobile speed is so dismal, it's actually impacting the performance of the ads. And
wow.
so you want to make sure that your website loads fast. And then, yeah, so that was a big one. And then, the time of day, there's like a whole bunch of different things you can do in the background. So some other things that might be well to look at are device and time of day, because let's say they're not, you see a lot of them that are coming in the middle of the night, but they're not converting. But in the
Mhm.
daytime, there's less people coming, but they're converting more. So you may want to switch it so that maybe not the impressions aren't showing up as much at night, so that you can make a bigger impact with your budget during the day. And then once you take a look at those sides of things, the other piece that that can be a big part of it as well, is when they land on your website. So is it really giving them what they thought they would get? So if you have like way too much going on, that might be deterring some people. And that you can look at your Google Analytics. So if you take a look at your analytics and you are getting less than a 2% conversion rate, that's just a totally random guideline to start with, just so somebody has some numbers. But if somebody comes from your Google ads and they're not doing the thing you want them to, whether it's download something or sign up for a newsletter, if not at least 2% of them are doing that, that's a good number to shoot for. And then maybe you do some testing to find out why. So maybe it's maybe the form's broken. Like that's one thing that happens kind of more
Yeah.
often than people probably would like to admit, but those are probably some of the big ones. And then you can test out, different messages, or like if it's a download, maybe it's too many fields being asked for. So maybe you just reduce it to like one or two required things that you need.
Amazing. So now, what are some uncommon ways that you've seen that business owners that are working? Let's use that are working for business owners to get traffic to their websites these days.
I think probably these days the best one is getting mentions on other websites or getting in front of other audiences. So again, it's going to vary from business to business. I have one client who I worked with, and her best way to get traffic to her website was by guest blogging on other blogs.
Wow.
So she would put and write something for the other blog post, and then she would have her bio at the end, and it would just generically, send her back to the website. And so she would get visits from that. And so for her particular business and her industry, that was one way to do it. I have another one where organic search and Google Ads are their top driver. I have another one where it's actually the Google Maps, because it's a local business. So when people type in something in their industry, they show up in the maps, and that's how they get a lot of calls and a lot of inquiries. So that's that one. And again, I'm still going to go back to blog posts quite a bit, just because with organic search. So the difference between organic and paid is that organic, you have such longevity with it. So,
Yeah.
for example, I had this client who had an ultimate guide who was written on her website, had all kinds of information on it, and had been sitting out there for a couple of years, and it was getting some leads and getting some traffic. But then we made some updates to it with her copywriter, and then it got more leads and more traffic again. So while we think we just write one blog post and we're done with it, the great thing is it sits out there the whole time, getting all the traffic, but then you can refresh it and it might like liven it up again.
So for those business owners who hate numbers, what are the best three metrics or things they need to track to have this work for them?
The best metrics to check for website traffic would be your Google Analytics and a free tool called Google Search Console. Those are going to be the most accurate versus like other tools. And there's ways that you can track where things are coming from. So like when you go into your Google Analytics, there's a thing called channel and channel grouping. And then there's also source and medium. Basically what it's telling you is are things traffic coming from organic search? Is traffic coming from social? Is traffic coming from LinkedIn? And there are things that you can put at the ends of your URL when you're sharing that out into the world so that you can see exactly where they're coming from. They're called campaign parameters, and you just put in some information at the end. Like let's say you put it on LinkedIn and you put like source equals LinkedIn, medium equals something, something, and then campaign equals something. When those come into your Google Analytics, you can see what page they landed on, that it came from LinkedIn and that kind of thing. There are some places that automatically show up, like LinkedIn does automatically show up. However, if you wanted to attribute it to a specific campaign that you're doing, you would want to manually put that in and make it say that it was coming from that campaign. So and then social also mostly comes in as their names. TikTok still isn't coming in unless you put the URL in there. And then Google My Business is the big one. So if you have a website link on your Google My Business, you absolutely want to put those tracking parameters at the end. And you can find those on my website. I'm sure there'll be links in the show notes, but you put those links at the end of the website on your Google Business profile, and it will show up in your Google Analytics. Because without that, it just shows up as organic, and you can't see that it is coming from your Google Business profile. So that's a helpful way.
All right. So now all the things you mentioned for the average business owner, this might be a lot. So can you share maybe a simple weekly checklist or schedule that business owners can follow, maybe step by step to maintain their website visibility so that they don't get overwhelmed by maybe all those things you mentioned?
Yes, so a weekly checklist is simply looking at the numbers and just taking a look and saying, okay, where did the traffic come from? And then looking at it from an overview. So like 3 months, maybe visibility, that kind of thing. So that way you can kind of see if it's tracking down or up. And the other one is leads or downloads or whatever your main goal is for your website. That would be something else that you want to take a look at least on a weekly basis.
I see. So what is a realistic timeline for seeing results and what should business owners expect at least in the first 3 months of doing this?
I would say that like site audits and checking to see if there's anything broken on your website, you could probably do every 6 months or a year. And then like keyword research and content information, that's going to vary. Some of the newer stuff you wouldn't need to check as much, like can it be refreshed? But maybe something that's over a year old, you would want to take a look at that and see if there's anything that you can do to help give it some life and maybe bump up into the rankings.
Okay, so what tool would you recommend for business owners to monitor their website traffic?
The best tool to monitor traffic is Google Search Console and Google Analytics. So there are tools out there that measure your traffic. However, it's going off of like whatever they're doing. They all have a different way of doing things. And most of them now will actually ask to be connected directly to your analytics. So why not just go to your analytics in the first place? So I would set up a dashboard in there and take a look. And then there's always a way to do it too. Like there's a Looker Studio. So Looker Studio is a free tool from Google, and it will pull information from Google Analytics and Google Search Console together. So that way they're all in one dashboard. So that's always helpful.
That's amazing that Google is actually still the number one for monitoring website traffic. Okay, the thing, most people listen to podcast episodes, and once the podcast episodes are done, they forget because they didn't pick anything they would be able to do to at least practicalize the knowledge they learned. So for this episode, what's one actionable step every listener can take after listening to this episode that will lead them on the path to success with this?
The action step you should take immediately after this episode is one of my favorite things to do. Go to Google, type in site colon, and then your domain.com. So like mine is site colon compassdigitalstrategies.com. When you plug that in there and hit enter, you're going to see a list of all the pages that Google has indexed from your website. So you can see exactly how people are looking at your website. So if one of these pages were to come up in search, you can see what the page title looks like and what the description looks like. And more times than not, it's not going to look the way that you would want it to. Sometimes if you don't specify what that information is, it takes off of like the first stuff it sees in the page, and a lot of the times is navigation. So it's not really compelling information to want to make people click in. For example, a lot of people forget about their homepage, and it literally says homepage instead of what service you sell or your name or something like that.
Amazing. So I enjoyed speaking with you, and I know this can go on forever, but for listeners who want to find out more about you, more about what you do to connect with you or to work with you, what's the best way they can reach you?
And where listeners, to find more about SEO and content marketing, it's super simple. Just go to compassdigitalstrategies.com, and there's a bunch of resources on there. There's the podcast, Small Business Sweet Spot. There's an SEO planner, and there's also an SEO Power Up plan.
Amazing. So compassdigitalstrategies.com would be in the show notes for audio and also on the screen for those watching on video so they can follow up with you and improve, track their website traffic. So thank you so much, Barb, for coming on Take Your Business today. And for the listeners, if you learned anything from this episode, if you know anyone this episode will benefit, please share this episode with them. If not, we have over 150, almost 200 episodes live of this podcast. So you have a lot to learn about how to take your business. So go through those till next week. Don't forget to keep taking your business. Bye for now.